Hello, everyone. Anything to anybody?
Hello.
What type of short book would you pay money for? Hello, everyone. November 2nd, 2022. Another beautiful day, Wednesday. When it's this nice out, very difficult to stay inside and work. So I try to find a compromise. I'm going to continue to talk about the books because that's what's taking up a lot of my time. And last night I was watching a video from this guy. I don't want to get into him so much, but I don't know how he grew his channel to over 1 million subscribers. It makes me wonder what people are thinking when they subscribe to people. But anyway, so he had the reason I clicked on is he had a catchy title and it said how to write a book in under 24 hours, and I'm like, well, I certainly would like to know, because that's not the process that I've discovered. So I listened to the video, and of course, he's talking about these short, informational, gimmicky books like, how to find a girl in 24 steps, right? Or something like that. Or, how to lose weight. Or so I was thinking, this is very interesting, because the guy was saying he makes $10,000 a month from one of these short books he did that he did in a weekend. And so I started thinking, well, I mean, money's always nice, don't get me wrong, but it depends what you have to do for it. So I wanted to put it out to you folks out in the ether space. What type of short book would you pay money for? I'm just curious. I mean, I don't know who's buying these things. I'd be very interested in knowing. And the only reason I say that is because obviously at my age now and my level of experiences, I've been kicked in the head multiple times, been around the block a few times. So I think I could easily write about many things. So I'm just curious, what type of book would people be interested in? If anybody has any answers to that, I'd be interested in hearing them. So that's it. So, he was also saying that when he first started writing books, the mistake he made was he tried to put a lot of research and a lot of work into the books to make them perfect and useful. And he said that one of the books he took over a year and a half, put all this money and time into it, and it flopped. And he realized that it was a waste of all his time and energy to do that. Well, I understand what he's saying, but I think you have to, this is just my opinion, of course, I think at least a first book, I think it's like an endeavor. It's like running your first marathon. It's seeing if you can do it more, because if you've never done it before, you don't really know if you can do it. And then the second book you write, I think, is maybe hopefully a little bit easier. Like when I first ran my first marathon, it was excruciatingly difficult. I had no idea what to expect. I trained for it, but my body wasn't prepared for the torture of 26.2 miles will do. But the second time I ran it, see, I've got to try to remember this now, it's so long ago. The second time I ran it was much easier because I knew how to pace myself. I knew what to expect. You know the pains, the turmoils, and how to respond. Like the first time I ran with a buddy of mine named Rob. Rob, how you doing, buddy? And we went to high school together, and he was going to BU, and I was up in the Boston area. And I don't even know how we decided to do this, but we trained independently. And then I met him in Hopkinton somehow, which is where the race starts. It starts in Hopkinton, west of Boston, and then you run into Boston. And we ran and we hit Framingham, which I think is mile 8 or mile 9. And he had to go to the bathroom, and they had the portalettes all lined up. And I made the mistake of stopping because I was in a groove at that point. You know, I was warmed up and I was ready to go, but I basically stopped or ran in place or did whatever. And then 5-10 minutes later, however long it was, Rob came along and we continued, and it killed me. It destroyed my entire rhythm. And I learned right then and there, run your own race. Run your own race. And in fact, that's in the book, the first book, Agua Sangre. I talk about that. And no matter what I do now, like you just have to do your own pace, know yourself. And but there was a reason I was telling this story. Oh yeah. So yeah, let me change positions. It's funny, I don't know if this is a practice dummy or a piece of artwork. In this world, you don't know. But yesterday or the day before, I was actually punching it and kicking it. And I stopped after. I'm like, you know what? What if I'm destroying, like, their Van Gogh? This should be a sign. I think it's got to be one of those... You see them in the gym sometimes, these dummies that you hit, and they're like a Weeblo. They don't tip over. They bounce down and then they'll bounce back, and you got to watch out, otherwise they can punch you right in the face. But what was I saying? Oh, okay. So, and you know, then when you're on a second marathon and you want to do a third marathon, well, then you have to have your head examined probably, because what's the point? But the third marathon was actually my best time. And I think it was 2 hours and 43 minutes. That can't be right. I forget. Somewhere I have the information written down, but it doesn't matter anymore. Today I'd need a car to finish marathon. So, or a lion chasing me. You know, anybody, you know, when you get that adrenaline, I think almost anybody, if you're, you know, you're not carrying a lot of weight and you're in reasonably good shape, I think anybody can run 10 or 15 miles when you have that adrenaline. That's my experience watching people, because the Boston Marathon, it used to allow people like me who don't have a number just show up and run. I forget the name. Back of the Pack, I think it's called. And they let you start like 10 minutes after the leaders, like you're going to catch them. And that's typically around 15 miles. And then at the Boston Marathon, it's around 17 or 18 miles, if I remember correctly, maybe a little bit more, where you hit Heartbreak Hill in Newton. And if you drive or you're out for a walk on Heartbreak Hill, it's nothing. I mean, it's like a gradual hill. But most people don't realize this. The Boston Marathon, you're running downhill for the first 13 or 15 miles, gradually in most places. You don't notice it, but your body over that first hour or two, or however long it takes, you're going downhill. Then when you hit Heartbreak Hill, you got to go up. And that's why they call it Heartbreak Hill, because a lot of people will try to shift those gears and something breaks and they just can't do it. In fact, the first time I ran the Boston Marathon, the Heartbreak, I was okay with Heartbreak Hill, because I was like, I'll die before I stop. But the problem was around mile number 22. Mile number 22, if I remember correctly, it was getting down to Brookline, if I remember correctly, and I started overheating. And I've always said with running, I would much rather take pain in my legs than breathing problems, because when you're having breathing problems, it's tough to keep the rhythm and you know, your breathing leads to your energy. And I actually did stop at mile 22. That was really and I actually went down on my knees because I just couldn't. I don't remember but I stopped for about 2 or 3 minutes, and there were a whole bunch of other people who were like out of commission, like they had the aluminum, thin aluminum mylar blankets over them, and I'm like, frig that. And I said, hey, I'm gonna finish this if I have to crawl to the finish line. Which, and then fortunately, about a mile later, I was behind this girl, and she had the most perfect figure from behind, and I just put my focus on her and just stayed behind her. And then we came within the last mile. I went up to her and thanked her, and she's like, for what? I said, well, I've been following you the last couple miles. And I actually stayed in touch with her for a couple of years, but she was from New York or something. She was away, and at that age I wasn't interested in that. So, all right. So, okay, well, that was a side rant.